Welcome to this episode of Clinic Success Secrets. Today, we are honored to be joined by Dr. Nejmeh, founder and CEO of NIO Consulting Group, a leader in medical consulting. Dr. Nejmeh specializes in integrative medicine with advanced diplomas in naturopathic and Western herbal medicine and a PhD in orthomolecular medicine, complemented by a Bachelor in Science in Psychology from the University of Toronto. She's also served 10 years as a Deputy Minister in the International Parliament for Safety and Peace, focusing on global health initiatives. Today at NIO Consulting Group, Dr. Nejmeh leads a team offering comprehensive consulting for medical professionals specializing in process improvement, personalized patient healthcare, and medical device distribution. Dr. Nejmeh's vision, as we're going to dive into today for NIO Consulting Group, is to lead healthcare innovation nationally and internationally, driving excellence and innovation for medical practice. So, Nina, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Thomas. I'm really happy to be here. And I'm honored that you chose someone like me to share my very little wisdom about the world of medicine.
Well, based on our previous conversations, Nina, I think that's extremely humble of you. I think I learned more in our previous chats than I have in dozens of other ones. So I'm really looking forward
You're
to
sweet.
I'm looking
I
forward
hope
to
to impart some sort of or enlighten the audience on what is going on with healthcare and why I felt I need to step in and do something about it.
I'm sure we will. Nina, could you start off? I'm probably glossing over a lot of important information, but could you start off by sharing a bit about your journey from practicing medicine to actually founding NIO Consulting Group and what that transition into the business side of healthcare looks like?
Absolutely. I was running a very successful chain of clinics in Toronto, in the Greater Toronto area, for many years. And I was also consulting part-time for other companies, which that consulting position took me across the country and I guess also into the US. And I basically found myself while I was running my clinic that I was faced with a lot of challenges that I did not anticipate. While I was in medical school or preparing to open up my own clinic. And thankfully, I had some great mentors, and my father was one of them, to navigate and bring solutions that were viable to my clinic. And with that being as a launching pad, I felt that I could help my colleagues who, when we met up at functions, and they would share with me the challenges that they were having, and I would totally relate, because you have to be within that circle to really relate to their challenges and obstacles. I decided to offer them consulting services and to benefit from my trials and errors and all of the wonderful side roads that I had to take sometimes to get to the most feasible and economic and wonderful resolution. I can just present it to these clinicians who were initially a group of colleagues, and then it grew from there to be covering all of the province and then throughout Canada and the US.
Nice. So bringing back today then, obviously, how would you describe the main mission of NIO Consulting Group today in 2024 and beyond?
We focus on what we call the 4 E's. And this is going to be a little radical because our mission is to focus on the clinicians, the doctors, rather than the patients, because we believe that if the doctor, the specialist, whomever is taking care of you, your healthcare provider has to be supported, has to be um, uh, helped in so many different ways from the business side of things. So we decided to come up with these 4 E's, which is to engage, with the clinician, and to educate would be the next part of their journey, to empower them with, the latest technologies and the latest supportive personnel. And lastly, to enhance, that would result in enhancing their outcome, financial and other. Um, um, the problem, I'm sorry to kind of go a little bit off tangent. When you are running a clinic, you tend to very much focus on the patient and the patient experience, and you lose yourself, and you do not concentrate on the business side of things. And most importantly, you don't concentrate on journey. And we found a lot of our doctors are either financially very they're having very huge financial issues, and also most importantly, they were burning out. And that was something that I did not want to see happening to somebody who was put on this earth to help people, but then in turn get into a situation where they're so burnt out and their mental health declines so much that there are now huge initiatives around the world to make sure that doctors are not in that high bracket of suicide. So that prompted me to really get involved with supporting the doctors. And I knew inadvertently, or I mean indirectly, and then directly, that will impact the patient care. If your doctor is happy and healthy and engaged and empowered, then everything else falls into place.
And what are some key strategies for, finding that balance between profitability and making sure we're avoiding burnout in clinics?
I mean, it depends on the practice, Thomas. But I mean the actual specialty and the size of the practice and the number of people who work there. But if I could just generalize it, it's about making sure that the doctor takes time to focus on his or her own mental health. They rarely do that. So we had to basically engage them with other specialists and other experts in the field of, meditation and yoga, for example, all kinds of real and real solutions that I know they knew of, and they recommend all those things to their patients, but they never take the time to engage in themselves. The other part, besides doing all of that, when a doctor is being supported on the operations of their clinic, and to make sure that they are they become or stay profitable, that also alleviates a lot of the mental anguish that they have. And at the end of the day, the community of doctors, and that's how NIO came about. Actually, 90% of the people who are employed by NIO are, in some shape or form, are medical professionals. So we provided a community of like-minded individuals to step in and to help out in whatever area that is needed, to make sure that doctor is not running him or herself down to the point where they're not reachable.
That's, I mean, honestly, what you're talking about here, it makes so much sense when you say it out loud. You know, at the end of the day, saying goes, you can't give from an empty cup. And at the end of the day, this is, in a very literal sense, life or death very, very often. You know, you need to make sure the provider is actually tuned in and through no fault of their own. But if they're not in that environment where it's actually encouraged to be operating at 100%, uh, it's just everyone loses if it's not done, and everyone wins if it is.
Oh, absolutely. I love that. I love that. And you know that it's a very emotionally draining industry. I mean, I hate to call it an industry or a business, but you're in the business of dealing with people who are ill, and you're not dealing with happy people, and you're dealing with people who are not feeling well and they're not themselves, and you're taking on a lot of responsibility. And you tend to, I mean, you're an empath, you know, an empathetic person. You tend to take on all of these rather negative stimuli, and what ends up happening, it sits with you, you know, as a doctor, and it brews, and sometimes for a lot longer than it should. And that's where the support should come in from other colleagues.
And then bringing it back to the work that you're doing at NIO, how does that actually look like in an actual sort of business model slash service fulfillment, you know, angle? You know, how do you guys work when it comes to offering these
Yeah.
services?
Again, if I could generalize, but I'll give you a few examples briefly. For a practitioner, for example, who is challenged with a revolving door in terms of the employees who are working at the clinic. You know, we then come in, we put in after we understand the issues, we put in strategies to make sure that there's a program that is put in to entice employees to stay, and that the employees are also supported. And that's just a small piece, but it makes a huge difference. If a doctor has to go into a room and deal with a patient's emergency, but thinking that the nurse that he just hired and trained 2 months ago is leaving at the end of that day, it's quite taxing on that doctor. And in terms of implementing or designing and implementing policies that help the clinic run more efficiently. And when that happens, that allows the doctor to just focus on patient care. Sometimes, I hate to say it, but sometimes doctors are brilliant at what they do, but they really lack the business acumen and the knowledge on how to run a clinic, or what is the most viable and efficient way of running a clinic. And that comes after, to some of them, after years of a lot of disappointments. And by that time, they had lost so much money and they did not build the patient roster that they need. So we go in, actually, we prefer to go in and help those who have just graduated and say, listen, we've been there, we've done that, and this is what you need to do. And we just set them up on, the journey to be successful, rather than wait for them to fall, because over 85% of them fall. They're not all blessed with mentors around them, or people who know how to monetize or how to run a healthcare business. So that's one of the examples. It could be about HR. Sometimes it's even training. You know, the doctor doesn't have time to train the front, desk job professionals. And it could be about training on how to implement and put in some new innovative technologies within the clinic to engage with the patient, or to to, to make sure that everything is confidential, and it's according to regulations, but we cannot just keep doing things on paper. We've met a lot of doctors who say, no, 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 I'm not doing anything on the computer or sharing over some portal, the notes, for my visit. But a lot of these things have to be discussed to every generation of these doctors to get them to see that that's how patients like to be now seen and treated by a doctor. So there are a lot of different layers that we have to kind of peel to see where are the issues. Is it from the patient side that there have been complaints or bad reviews? Is it that the doctor is feeling really extremely run down and burnt out? We interview every single person who is within the establishment, and we sometimes discover things that the doctor had no idea existed, which is, it's part of our job. And we fix all of these problems, and we go and move on, knowing actually that what we have done is going to impact profoundly the type of care that doctor and that clinic is going to be giving to the community, to the patients. At the end of the day, it's another way of us doctors helping patient care. So it became a very interesting reversal of the whole dynamic changed when I thought, was I put on this earth to help patients or to help doctors? And they are so intertwined that you have to help both.
And what's that saying? It's sort of like who's going to watch the watcher or who's going to guard the guardian kind of thing. You're not helping people directly, but you're helping people help people, and by extension, maybe even perhaps
Absolutely.
that's powerful. And with regards to the clientele that you specifically have for NIO Consulting Group, what does that breakdown look like? Is it private practices? Are they, is it general practitioners? Is it cosmetic clinics? How does that breakdown look?
So NIO is a large company with a tremendous amount of, I guess, the expertise that we have as a group of doctors and professionals. We find that the most critical part of the whole journey in medicine is within very small clinics. Hospitals have their own huge set of challenges, and we do engage with hospitals and bigger clinics, but we find that the need or the critical and urgent need is usually within the parameters of a very small clinic. When I say very small, meaning 1 or 2 doctors who have maybe 5 to 10 employees, we find that we are helping those types of establishments a lot more. And like I said earlier, those are the types of doctors who are just starting out, and there's only 1 or 2 or 3 of them who decided to open up a clinic. Nothing that has been franchised or anything like that. Now, we do stay with them as they grow, but I felt that if we can set them up on the journey with a successful plan, we are golden, and everybody's golden. When you go into a huge franchise or a big hospital, we focus on very structured and compartmentalized type of dysfunctions that it's not as impactful. We feel it's not as impactful on the whole organization, but it is necessary a lot of times, especially when we're bringing into a hospital, for example, the newest technologies or the newest we come in and educate and certify professionals within the hospital system, there's a role for NIO in that space as well. But the most palpable, excuse the pun, for the doctor, the most palpable um, uh, benefit and exciting improvement, I guess I could say, we see it with the smaller community clinics.
That's great. And I'm sure a lot of people listening here maybe, are even in that situation. So obviously, needless to say, shameless plug, if you are in that situation and you would like to maybe refine your internal processes, learn about managing burnout and stuff, Neo Consulting potentially could be the people to get in contact with. And your information will be in the description of this video and on Spotify and all that. Bring it back.
Yes, absolutely. That would be actually a very smart thing to do for any clinician. And I'll share something very small. We do not make the bulk of our revenues or profits is not actually from supporting these small clinics. I mean, we sell huge medical equipment to hospitals across Canada and the US. We're a good business in that term. However, I feel that the clinicians are afraid to engage and say, "Hey, I need some help," because doctors are extremely smart and they don't think they need help in anything. Things will work themselves out. The cost is really minimal, to be honest with you. To get NIO to get involved and to put a plan in place. But the cost of not getting the help is astronomical. So I just wanted to point it out that, we're a medical community that is trying to help either a young graduate or somebody who's just not doing well in their clinic for whatever reason. Like I said, because we care about the patients and the health of that doctor, that we come in and present something at a very, very reasonable cost, but the reward is just so immense for all of us. And like I said, that's not our hugest or the biggest generator of profit. So that should put doctors who are struggling with their finances a little bit at ease, that this is not going to break the bank even further. So yeah, I would look forward to hearing from anybody who's struggling, and we can set them up with the right experts at NIO to help them out.
Listen, I can vouch for Nina's integrity on that front. But moving on past that, as I said, the information will be there. If someone is interested, obviously get in touch. You touched earlier on, and I want to dive into what you talked about, the community and relationship side of things, because I think that is so important. But before we do, elephant in the room, like you said, a lot of doctors or medical professionals might be exceptional when it comes to the actual medical side of things, but maybe they haven't had the opportunity to develop that business acumen because they haven't got the reps. What are some essential business skills that you see and you believe doctors need to develop to run a successful clinic in order of priority?
I find the problem stems from the fact that in medical school, there's really very little, if any, support or education on how to run a business as a doctor. So having said that on the get-go, that puts that professional at a very difficult start to their career. Now, if you enter into a hospital, maybe that's different. I'm talking about the ones who are taking or making the decision to start their own practice. Now, when you start your own practice, the most essential thing that I think has been missing from a lot of clinicians is a business plan. They tend to have a business plan that is really focused on financial, funding, for example, because I mean, unless, you're one of the top 1% in terms of your um, uh, assets and all of that, most young clinicians need to get money from the bank to start their business. So they get someone like an accountant to start their business plan for that purpose. And usually they get approved and then they start the business. They do not have another plan on how to run the business. Feel like that's the disconnect. They get the money, they walk in and they equip the place and they put up the sign open for business and they think, hey, everything is just going to go wonderfully. And it does not. Usually, in most cases, the acquisition of the right staff is really not a big focus for a new entrepreneur. The training of the staff, there's no time or there is no playbook, if you will, to ensure that everybody's expectations and on both sides, the expectations have to be clear. And the journey of these people within your clinic, they need to have a specific and clear journey outlined for them. That this is what you do in year 1, this is what you're going to do in year 2, and this is as we grow. They need to see themselves belonging to that clinic for many years. And that is usually missing. So the financial plan sometimes is also done by someone who doesn't communicate to the doctor and it's just given to the bank. And then the doctor doesn't adhere to the financial plan. And that could also be a problem. Secondly, the actionable business, I guess the operational plan, I should say, is a very critical piece of the foundational launch of that doctor's practice. And then it's like I said, it's anything and everything that could happen at that clinic. Do we have emergency plans? If the doctor fell ill, you can't abandon a patient. Or if the doctor's wife or husband or kids become ill, or they have to travel somewhere for an extended period of time. So a lot of things that young doctors don't think about when they're opening up their clinics. And then all of a sudden things just happen. Their senior chief nurse is leaving for 6 months, or they have to leave, or their partner that takes care of all of the pediatrics is going to be leaving or is unwell or whatever. So we break it all down to make sure that you are prepared financially, operationally, mentally to deal with all of these things that can go wrong with any other business, by the way. I mean, any other business. I can open up a hair salon tomorrow. And that comes with a slew of, maybes and a lot of uncertainties and challenges. But in the medical field, I found throughout my life, there hasn't been a company that does or offer to offer the help to the doctors to alleviate and minimize the impact that an unforeseen challenge could bring, because you are dealing with people's lives. So, and that doctors take on very, very seriously. And that actually could cause the initial stages of the burnout and the mental anguish that they go through. Does that answer the question?
It definitely does. I was going to touch on the whole common pitfalls that people ask, but I think the whole, you sort of answered that already nearly by saying the lack of an initial business plan and even knowing where to start is a major one. Again, we can dive into exactly the strategies and what it actually looks like for NIO Consulting clients when they do work with you and how you remedy that. But before we go near that, I'd love to talk about, you're talking about burnout and isolation and all these things, the importance of relationships and community. And, you have spoken about this, both in previous conversations we've had and so far on this. And how does NIO Consulting Group foster a supportive network for doctors and healthcare professionals? And why do you believe it's so essential?
I mean, that's an excellent question. I think this is the premise and the foundation of our company. Doctors are very reluctant to ask for help in anything and for anything. So what we find, it takes a doctor to know what a doctor needs, and specifically if they're in the same specialty. So we arrange for doctors to have meetups, and we would like the ideal situation that I was describing for you before about the actionable plan and all of that. We like to get in with that doctor before they even open up a clinic. Set them up for success, and go through the plan and how it's going to be executed. But I mean, that's the ideal situation. Does it always happen? No. 99% of the time, it's after they've started the practice for a few years and they're struggling. So the uniqueness about, I guess, NIO and NIO's team and board members is that you could talk to, you can get, let's say, a cardiac, let's say a surgeon who's struggling, okay? And this is somebody who's not even, they have their own practice, but they also work at the hospital. So they have access to, a mental health professional if they're feeling down. Now, it was just so surprising to me that it takes another surgeon who has mastered the art of keeping healthy, on a mental, the mental side of things, to bring that surgeon out of whatever they're going through. Versus, and I'm not putting down, any expert out there or any counselor or psychologist or psychiatrist, but I find that the community that we kind of bring in together, where we say, oh yeah, I get you. I know how cardiology works, and I know what we're dealing with and all of that stuff. And this is what has helped me. And this is what I resorted to. And this is what I had to take out of my life. And this is what I had to re-inoculate in my life. And this is the plan that I really try to stick to, whether it's exercise, whether it's talking, to somebody, and revising, obviously, the practice itself. So we have a huge list of wonderful, wonderful doctors who've been through what we're trying to fix. And that actually makes the most profound difference. Friends of doctors who are lawyers or other professionals, or friends who are just trying to help, they all have great intentions, but it takes someone who's been there. I think it's more, it's more helpful when someone can talk to you from the same place where you are, that they have lived through, and how they found the journey, or what helped them and what didn't help them. I think that connection, that human connection, human/professional connection, is sometimes what is needed more than anything else. And that's what is unique and what differentiates NIO, because we're all in the same field. And if we don't have somebody who's been through what you're going through, we're going to find them, because we all have extensive network. And again, it's always about support and giving that patient or that doctor a a safe place to be vulnerable. It's from one doctor to another. You tend to see a lot of doctors who say, I don't want to share this with anybody at my hospital because somebody's going to probably write up something that, hey, this is on my record now, or I'm having a mental or stressful episode. Well, when it's not formal and two doctors go out for lunch and start talking about these things, I think it's a lot more real, and the doctor tends to share more of their, I guess sometimes it's a matter of life and death. Sometimes they're more likely to talk to someone who's in the same profession, the same space, rather than a mental health professional. And then we take it from there to other professionals after we establish a foundation of trust. And like I said, it could be because of these other insinuating terrible things that are happening at the clinic or wherever. When we start peeling the layers and making everything kind of go back to a functional and efficient manner, then little by little they start coming back from that dark space, dark place, I should say.
And obviously there's an element of confidentiality here, but are there any examples that come to mind of, when I say success stories, I hope you know what I mean by that, of people that came to NIO, perhaps are experiencing that, and then, what does the NIO effect look like? I suppose that's what I'm really asking you. Are there any case studies of people maybe came to you and they were struggling, and the power of these communities and these relationships, what impact has that had for their clinics and their own personal well-being?
I can remember something that has happened personally with that I was involved in. I think I could share better. I was communicating with one of my friends who is a doctor and who's practicing in the Greater Toronto area, and I could tell from her voice that something is not right. And it took a while to get her to open up. And we have a head office in Canada, and we also have one in Florida. And to make a long story short, I invited her to come to Florida to take some time off, and I arranged for someone to take over her practice for a couple of weeks. And she stayed at the head office in Florida. So, it's not about the cost or anything, but what I mean, it was a very personal and individual type of approach to say, okay, now you're in a different environment and you're safe. I know you, you know me. Let's start talking. And, I incorporated everything from being outside in the sun, which she wasn't getting at all, and being in the water, having conversations that are very deep and meaningful. And again, no judgment, no, the biggest thing is actually to feel safe and open and vulnerable. And we started coming up together as to what is causing her to feel so depressed. Let's put it that way. And there were many factors involved. And we sat together, and by the end of the second week, her demeanor and her excitement just were so great to see. But that was just an initial invite. And I'm not saying I do that with every doctor, but I felt that this is what this doctor needed. and that change of scenery and someone to take care of her practice. But then working with her, because we identified the triggers, we identified the reasons of why she's feeling like that. Then I could set her up with somebody, which I did in the Greater Toronto area, who has been almost in an identical situation, and how the multifaceted, approach that we've taken with that other doctor. And then they kind of shared, he shared with her the experience. And what is so great about it, that there was no cost involved. These doctors just, we connected them, we talked, and we let them do their thing. And now that relationship is ongoing. And there's a promise that whenever, you feel that you're slipping again, or something that is not going as we planned, to definitely reach out to NIO, or if that other doctor is no longer available. So that's one of the examples that come to my mind. That example was actually, I think it was such a great success story, because that doctor was at a real dark place, that I feel just when doctors feel like, hey, I saved the life today of a patient, nobody ever says I saved a doctor. It's very rare you hear that. And when you save a doctor, of course, you're saving a lot of other people, and you're saving that family. But men are harder to reach. So male doctors are less inclined to share that they're having issues with their practice or with their family life, the guilt that they feel about not spending time with, the wife and kids and all of those things. So they take on a larger burden. So what we do when we are examining the clinic and investigating what's going on and interviewing everybody, when we get to the doctor, especially if they haven't been forthcoming with all of these wonderful challenges, we actually ask them straight out. And once we do, there's usually a silence with a lot of them. Oh, and then little by little, and one meeting after another, the male doctor opens up. The female doctors tend to open up a little bit earlier and faster. But that's a trick, and he should know that we all have been taught how to talk to patients. And for that moment, he becomes our patient. And we're able to, from what is going on. So, and even if we save a family, because doctors honestly give so much to their profession, that it comes with the role, that you will be neglecting your role as a father or mother or a son or whatever. So I think after the identification of that, we say, okay, how could we alleviate this guilt? How do we make your communications and your interactions with the family better, so that it doesn't affect your mental health when you're at work? So it's a wonderful position to be in, to be honest, to be able to help.
That's it, to wash the washer. No, I have to admit, I can imagine that being incredibly rewarding. And there's so many emotions that I can imagine are coming up to clinicians if they listen to what you're saying, thinking, finally someone gets me. And I think with a lot of these mental health side of things, I can't speak for women, but for men anyways, very often it's that case of, oh, I'm probably the only one thinking X, Y, Z. Whereas sometimes all it takes just to know, actually, that's a perfectly normal thing for someone to be going through. And you don't even need a solution, just to know, oh, well, there's exhibit A, this person has gone through similar emotions or whatever. So I think that's incredibly powerful. Before I definitely wrap this up, because I'm conscious of the time, and I want to be respectful of that. But before I kind of boil down to advice directly for clinic owners, I know you're very involved in the tech space and healthcare and telehealth and all that. And again, a whole different conversation to have, and hopefully we can have that conversation soon. But at a high level, what does the dangerous question? What kind of trends do you see happening coming up in on the tech side, the health tech side of things in the next 3 to 5 years that medical professionals should be sort of keeping at the back of their mind?
Um, Again, it is a broad question, and
Yeah.
it all depends on the practice, the size of the practice and the discipline. But in general, I find that um, more established doctors have to really, really start looking at incorporating um, like, for example, the reputation management software. I'm going to give you just an example. A lot of established doctors don't think that they have to have something online that allows the patients to voice their opinion of the practice, you know? But having that gives the patient the voice that they need to have and to share with the community. Um, it's something that is really unheard of for somebody who's now, let's say, 65, 70, and who's going to be retiring soon. But it is something that maybe um, the established clinics that still have 5 to 10 years to go should be investing in. And human resources, I can't even say it enough. The person who answers your phone can make or break your practice. So I tell people they can all hear the smile of that person. And if they're trained well, and if you have the right people doing the right job at the clinic, you're going to be successful. And finally, I feel it a lot of times it comes down to the finances. If the financial plan and the operational plan are not cohesive and they don't match, a practice will never really thrive to its full potential. So we bring in our financial gurus who are experts in the healthcare space, and we try to augment and point out where the opportunities are being lost or not being fulfilled to their, maximum. And we get a lot of our doctors to be involved also in humanitarian initiatives. And we feel that creates another level of connection between NIO's doctors and the practices that we are engaged with. I mean, it's not something that they have to do, but what I'm saying, we start getting them to be involved in things that are really meaningful, that are outside of the clinic space. So it dilutes the sometimes the negative dysfunction that they're leaving when they're giving back to the community, whether it's locally, nationally, or globally. And that approach has been just so wonderfully received. And I look forward to talking to anybody who's, I hate to say it, who's struggling, but to know that there's a definite, proven plan to get you to be successful with your practice on a financial, level, and with proper and meaningful relationships and with the patients. Patient care is number one, but also on a personal side for the doctors to feel that we know what you're struggling with, and these are the strategies and the tools that we've come up with to help you on your personal side of things, and hopefully your initiatives to help others do the same, and to offer free medical services at some point in your life is usually a really good thing for your mental well-being.
That's totally. And just before Nina, we asked where they can find you. Last question. In one or two sentences, what would you consider to be the most crucial takeaway from the conversation we've just had, and from your experience, more importantly, that healthcare, um, you know, workers or healthcare business owners could implement today to improve them, to help them succeed in their healthcare journey?
To be open, to be honest with themselves, and to accept help. We can't help anyone if we are not healthy. And to know that there is a community of professionals who are ready and willing to step in and help in any way and every way they can. Um, and the most important thing too, I mean, with the challenges that the whole world is facing these days with the lack of access to healthcare, I mean, there are a lot of problems that are beyond what NIO or what this doctor could do. But what I'm suggesting, those types of burdens that we feel can be mitigated and addressed with um, maybe aligning oneself with people who are going through the same thing, so that we can be heard as a group. You know, we do write to the politicians, and we do try to make systemic changes within the healthcare systems, whether it's in Canada or the US or globally. But I think if we just bring it all back, that the caregiver, the doctor, has to be in a very good, healthy state on all levels in order to give the optimal care that he or she has taken that Hippocratic oath to. Um, uh, that that part is essential for everyone to understand. It is the health of the doctor and the supportive staff. The support staff and the doctor within that clinic have to be happy and healthy and engaged in order to give the best care to the community. And that's where they can reach out to NIO Consulting Group in Canada, or NIO Consulting Group USA Corp in the US. And, you know, we'd be more than happy to lend our services and make those things happen.
And where can people find you? Website, LinkedIn, email? What's the best way to get in contact?
Yeah, I mean, we're on all of the social media platforms. For the website, it's NIO, NIO, CG, or consulting group, neocg.com. And all of the contact information is there. And we're also on LinkedIn as NIO Consulting Group. That's the name on LinkedIn. And same with Instagram, I believe. But we have a 1-800 number that anybody can reach us at any time. Whether you're an owner, operator, or entrepreneur of a small clinic, you're starting out, or you're halfway through your journey and you're struggling, or if it's quite a complex healthcare facility, we can still offer a lot of assistance and a lot of support.
Brilliant. Listen, we leave it at that, Nina. I just want to say it's been an absolute pleasure. This is definitely
Yeah.
a different angle to what we often talked about in clinic success secrets, but it's such an essential one. Um, as I said, you know, who watches the watcher? I think there's a, I could get deep about this, but there's a, as you're saying all this, I'm not sure how familiar you are with Jungian psychology, but there's this archetype of the Chiron, the wounded healer, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, where he can take care of everybody but himself. And as you're saying that, I think I would imagine a lot of people in these healthcare based roles, they they love helping others, but they're terrified of helping themselves, and it's possible to give from an empty glass. So, as I said, I think what you're doing is so, so important, both for the medical professionals, but also by extension, society as a whole. So, for anyone listening, I cannot recommend what you're doing enough. And yeah, I just want to say
Thank
thank you so
you.
much. And I'm looking
Thank
forward
you
to
for
doing this
having
again.
me. And thank you for actually setting this up. It's very rare that someone takes interest, and also, and just to reciprocate what you're saying, doctors need to be supported and helped and heard. And I really want to thank you for making that happen today. And until next time, if there's another chance that we can speak again and share some more wonderful news, I'll be more than happy to come back.
Brilliant. We'll do that. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks.